Hi, welcome back to Manohar Academy. In this lesson, we are going to compare the comparable interface with comparator interface. In the previous two lessons, after we have introduced the interfaces, we looked at the code examples, how to code the comparable and comparator. So we know how to use them in the code, but in this lesson, we are going to talk about comparing these two interfaces. So before we compare, let's do a quick recap of what is comparable and what is comparator, what we have learned basically. So you can learn more about comparable at this particular link. So just search for comparable on the internet, you will be able to see the API document. So whenever we are implementing the interface comparable, we have to provide the implementation for compareTo method. So there are two ways to do that. One is implementing just the raw type or just comparable. In this case, you are going to get a object of type object. Comparable is a generic type, so you can provide the type of the arguments. So basically we are providing the type is student. We are going to compare student objects, so we can provide the student type to the comparable interface. In this case, we are going to get a student object. In the previous case, we have to typecast the object to student type, but in this case we don't need to do that and it is safe. So this is the preferred way of doing it. Also, because the comparable is implemented by the class whose objects has to be compared, this is called the natural sorting order. That is the only reason we call it natural sorting order, nothing else. It is going along with the class itself, so it is called the natural sorting order, and the method, the compareTo method, is called natural comparison method. One thing we did not see when we were coding is natural ordering, or whatever logic we are providing here, it is recommended to be consistent with the equals method. So what do we mean by that? So whenever we are comparing two objects using the compareTo method, we know that we should return 0 if they are equal. So that is the same thing we are stating here again in the equals method. If the two objects are equal, it should return a true. So if it should be satisfied. If you are returning 0 and e1 dot equals e2 is returning false, then we are not consistent. So to be consistent, compareTo method should always return 0 whenever equals method is returning true. The other thing is, whenever we provide a null argument to equals method, we are returning false in the equals method, but in the compareTo method, we have to throw a null pointer exception. So if you are following these two things, then you are consistent with the equals method. Also, here is a simple code where we are invoking the sort method on arrays. There is a spelling mistake here and collections, and we are passing the array or a collection to these methods. So that is all about comparable and comparator. We have already seen this one as well, but let's discuss the comparator. You can find it here and you can read more about this here. And in case of implementing comparator, we are going to implement, or we are going to override the compare method. So also the other thing is, we are going to create a different class that implements this comparator interface. So in this case, let's say we are comparing student objects. So the student class is not implementing the comparator. A different class is implementing the comparator. So here we have two comparators, age comparator and name comparator, and age comparator compares ages and name comparator compares names, and according to that logic, the student objects will be sorted. So here also, if you are using the raw type, or if you are not providing the type to the comparator interface, then you are going to get two objects of type object. You have to typecast it before you can compare. But if you provide the type as shown here, you are going to get two objects of type student. So we don't need to do the typecasting here, and it is a safe way. Also, in case of comparator, it is recommended, also it is a good idea to implement the serializable interface. Serializable is a marker interface. All that you need to do is tag it with serializable and make sure the class is serializable, meaning every field should be able to be written to the file. Okay, and also here the sorting order is providing us the precise control. What we mean by that is you can create the comparator that meets your needs. Okay, in case of natural sorting order, you cannot change that logic. Someone else owns that student class and you can't change it, but here you can create your own comparator and give the custom logic that you want. So it is giving you a precise control. And also, as said in the natural sorting order, the custom order is also recommended to be consistent with the equals method. So if the equals is returning true, make sure you return 0. If the equals is returning false, whenever null is provided as an argument, we should return null pointer exception. So we have seen that in the previous slide. Also, here is a code example on how we invoke the sort method on arrays and collections. We provide the array or collection. Along with that, we are going to provide an object of type comparator. We are not providing any interface here. We are providing the object of that comparator interface. Okay. And last one that we did not see in the code example is we can also override equals method. So in this class or any comparator class, we can override the equals method. So, and that equals method will say whether the comparator that is provided to this comparator is same or not. So in this case, equals method can be overridden, and that says whether the other comparator is giving the same sorting logic or not. So this is also a very important point, but most of the time we don't do that. So that is fine. Now our favorite topic, that is comparable versus comparator. What are the similarities? What are the differences? Let's talk about the similarities first. Both are providing the sorting order. Both are actually doing the same thing. And both have the same contract on the returned integer, the sign of the returned integer, when it should return a positive value, when it should return a negative value, and when it should return a 0. Also, in both cases, the ordering is recommended to be consistent with the equals method. Same there. And both are part of collection framework. What is collection framework? We did not see it, but both belong there. Okay, these are the similarities, and then what are the differences? In case of comparable, we call it natural sorting order. That is because the comparable interface is implemented by the class whose objects needs to be sorted. So this is called natural sorting order. In case of comparator, we are calling it custom sorting order because the sorting logic is implemented in a different class. In case of comparable, only one sorting order is possible. There will be only one natural sorting order, but in case of comparator, we can provide as many custom sorts as we need. Also, in case of comparable, we are overriding a compareTo method which receives only one object, that is the other object that has to be compared to the current object. But in case of comparator, we always receive two objects and we say which one should come first, which one should come next. In case of comparable, whenever you are implementing comparable, the equals method in that class, it is checking for the equality of objects that are being sorted. For example, in the previous slide, the comparable is implemented by student class, and the equals method in the student class is checking for the equality of student objects. In case of comparator, the equal method checks for equality of two comparators, whether both are providing the positive sign or both are providing the negative sign, or the comparators same. So in case the last difference is, in case of comparable, there is no recommendation or serialization. So the comparable class, or the class that is implementing comparable, need not be serializable. But in case of comparator, it is recommended that it is serializable. Last but not least, if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and subscribe. If you are benefited from this video, if you have learned something from this video, please make sure you like it and share it with your friends so that they can also watch, they can also learn. See you in the next lesson. Thank you.